Well, turns out I still suck at catching pre-spawn muskies, so in this week's episode of Matt Can't Catch Pre-Spawn Muskies, we'll talk about terminal tackle. There's nothing special about this, but I'm going to give some perspectives on this that maybe some people haven't thought about, or, maybe just some different things. I have opinions. I'm not saying my opinions are valid or correct, but maybe there's something that a musky fisherman could take away from something that I do in order to help put more fish in the boat. Like Glenn McDonald says, you got people who just want to learn and who want to catch more fish. And I mean, that's what I'm here for. Enjoy catching fish, enjoy helping people catch more fish. So hopefully you guys can take something away from this. Even though it's not like the most glamorous musky subject, if you will. Okay, with musky fishing, first thing that's probably the most important to think about is so they got teeth. So leaders are very important. I'm kind of filming at a weird angle here because I just figured that would be the easiest thing for everyone to see. So, the biggest thing is getting the right kind of leader for the right kind of situation. And there's a variety of leaders that you can use. There's straight wire. There's these pandemonium ones that I have, and the fluoro one that I have too. There's a reason I selected this. So the first one I have here is the 7-inch with a swivel from Pandemonium Tackle, the Roswell leader. I love this for bucktails, swim baits, anything that is horizontally moving and you're bringing into the boat to do a figure eight. So I stole this one from Doug Wagner. When you're doing big figure eights and you want a figure eight type lure, the biggest thing is you want that leader to be as short as possible. So it increases the size of your figure eight as you're bringing it into the boat and you're widening that figure eight. So that's why I go with the 7 there. Okay, so I don't have any on me right now. Just because they're on my poles presently because it's spring and I have been getting after it. But the spring leaders from Stealth Tackle, very helpful, just a singular strand wire. They're great for rattle traps and smaller glides, very necessary for those springtime baits in order to run them properly. Because the reason I say that is, so like the Pandemonium ones, from my experience, have had some issues just because that wire is heavier. It can draw those glide baits nose down a little bit more and not allow them to run as neutrally in the water. So that's why in the springtime for those smaller glides and the rattle baits, even smaller twitch baits, I really like the spring leaders. Again, I don't have any to exemplify because they're on my rods. Another thing to think about too with the Stealth Tackle is the shallow invaders and the swimming invaders, the hook extenders. It's something that people have been making for years now on their own. Doug Wagner has featured it in some of his videos, but just shooting that back hook out a little bit further can really help you get some fish. That might just be kind of nipping at that lure rather than eating it all the way. Moving on, so for my 9-inch, I've got these Stealth Walk the Dog leaders. These things are really good and really critical for your walk the dog type baits. Again, I love the Pandemoniums, but the problem from the Pandemoniums in those types of situations is that wire is so heavy it kind of draws that bait down and somewhat hinders the action of said bait. So it's important to know, when you need those lighter gauge wires. But the disadvantage to these types of leaders, they are somewhat cheaper, but if you kink them, if you bind them, if you do something like that, they're not coming back the way that they were. And there's only so many times you can kink and bind a wire before it breaks. And that's something just in general to be aware of if you're using a straight wire leader, like the Stealth Tackle Walk the Dogs, or the spring leaders, or whatever you're using it for Suix, whatever the case might be. Moving on to the Pandemonium 9-inch. This is the other one that I use quite a bit. Probably, I would say, in terms of musky fishing, 90% of the time. I throw a lot of rubber. I throw a lot of dive and rise. I throw a lot of stuff like that, twitches as well. And this leader is perfect for all of those. It doesn't kink, it doesn't bind. You can bend it. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it, and it always comes back to true. Again, I really like this for a lot of applications, especially plastic. Now you'd be like, Matt, why are you using this for plastic? To which I'd respond, the heavier gauge wire that this offers, even though it's a disadvantage when it comes to running certain glide baits, becomes a huge advantage when you're running plastic, because it serves as a pendulum, allowing the bait to counter off of it and do a more kind of back and forth action under the water. And from my experience, it's worked with pretty much every different type of plastic that I've run. Obviously, there's some manipulation that you can do with those baits that allows them to run a given way. You can give them a little bit of bend or whatever the case is. But I've always noticed that there's a little bit more counter to it when running these heavier leaders. Last leader that I'll talk about real quick is the fluoro leader. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's very clear. That is one of the advantages. Some of the disadvantages with the fluoro, there is always the potential of them getting bitten through if you aren't vigilant. They don't translate vibration through the water near as much if you're running bucktails or something that vibrates, chatterbait, whatever the case may be. The other thing too, with them getting bitten through, I've only come, well, I shouldn't say Callie came close to it once with one that choked a Deusa here in Iowa. That was actually her biggest fish. It's a good thing the fight only lasted about 10 seconds, because if it lasted much longer than that, I might have been one of those unfortunate people who had a fluoro leader bitten through, because that one needed changed out as soon as we got done unhooking that fish. Or should I say cutting some hooks on that fish. Anywho, so that's kind of my leader rundown. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll get to them. Okay, moving on. That's a lot. Next thing on the list, let's talk about line. This is going to be much shorter. So I've got Cortland Master Braid. I picked up Master Braid recently in Wisconsin. Over the last couple of years, I've really had good luck with it. I really enjoy it. Power Pro guys, I know that you enjoy Power Pro. I've never had an issue with Power Pro. Some people have. I've never had an issue myself personally. But the thing with Power Pro is that smaller diameter will often lead to more issues with backlash. And the other thing too with Power Pro is that sometimes it has a tendency to snap or break off if you backlash a little easier, and it bites harder because of that lower diameter. Now, the thing with Master Braid is I don't think that it is fundamentally all that much different from Power Pro in my experience, and I haven't experimented with other types of braid. Like, I know Brian from Angling Anarchy and Glenn as well really have good luck with the Barbarian braid from up north, which I have yet to try. I'm just speaking from my experience with Power Pro and Master Braid. In my opinion, Master Braid is better at pretty much all of the things that Power Pro is good at. Like, Power Pro is great, Master Braid is just better. And that's my take on it. The only issue I've ever had with Master Braid was here recently. It does not shed water well. I know that is a critique of Master Braid, but in my 2.5 years, 3 years of fishing it, that's the only time that really has ever happened. Was last weekend when the wind chill was like 24 degrees or whatever it was. So that was miserable, but Master Braid is generally what I use. I'm not here to like crap on other lines or whatever. That's just, I've had a lot of success with Master Braid, and I just don't really have a reason to go away from it. Moving on to something that's often overlooked and shouldn't be is split rings. I happen to have two, I guess they're both number 7s, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I use all sizes of the Stealth split rings, the number 7, 5, and 6 for different applications. I really like the Stealth split rings. I have unfortunately been on the losing end of a bad split ring one time, and that was like one time too many. I had a really nice fish just absolutely crush my suic on a weed line, set the hook, fish head shakes once, comes off. I'm like, what the heck? I look at the suic as soon as the fish comes in, and the split ring is completely bent out. It's basically an oval at that point. So what had happened is when I set the hook, the split ring absorbed all the shock. The hook didn't go into the fish's mouth, and I lose a fish. So not super pumped about that. I'm a leader to split ring kind of guy, so I usually pair these together, and that usually works pretty well. And sometimes if I feel like I don't have confidence in the split rings that are put on factory-wise, I'll change them out for the Stealth Tackle split rings. A lot of confidence in them. They're great. Moving on, not sponsored by Stealth Tackle, but I mean, it's good stuff. Moving on, hooks are a very important and fundamental part of muskie fishing. I'm a big proponent of being able to control all of the different variables that you can while you fish. And I'm not saying that everyone has the money to spend on extra hooks or extra split rings or extra leaders or whatever the case is. Muskie fishing is not cheap. If you do it on the regular, you know that it isn't. But this is some of the stuff that I've had success with here recently. And this is the first time I've tried these. These are the Owner STX 58 TN. I'm assuming they're saltwater hooks based on the way they look, but they're literally top of the line Owner stuff. I've had really good luck with the Owner ST36s, and I really like them a lot, especially for plastics, twitches, dive and rises where that 3/0 size is like pretty much optimal. Yeah, so I had really good luck putting these on like regular dogs, toads, regular double dogs, mid-deuces, stuff like that. That'll take those 3/0 hooks really well. Again, I got some of the 1/0s just to try with different things. These ended up being a little bit bigger than I anticipated. I was kind of planning on putting on maybe some rattle traps or something, but they'll work fine for twitches, stuff for trolling, all those different types of things. I really like the Owner stuff for those smaller to mid-size baits. I've even gotten some ones for rattle traps and some of the smallest twitches that I use on a regular basis. For the bigger plastic lures that I use, these are the VMC high carbons. I really like them a lot. I like the way that the shank of the hook kind of forms and kind of creates a cup. It's not anything crazy. It's not anything special. I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there that say a hook is a hook regardless. In my opinion, not all hooks are created equal. And if it's a variable that I think I can control, I want to control it. And I want to be able to put more fish in the boat as a result. So I really like these, VMC high carbon 7/0s. I've had good luck with them. They're incredibly super sticky sharp right out of the package. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to sharpen them. And that's kind of an aside that I have is definitely sharpen your hooks. There's no reason to not do that. So yeah, I've had good luck with those hooks. I'm not saying that that's something that you should use, but that's just kind of what I've had success with and what I have used in my experience as I've kind of developed my own muskie thing. Last but not least, let's talk about some stinger hooks or trailer hooks. For my smaller, like lunging spinner baits, I definitely use the VMC trailers a lot. Like the 4/0 size seems to be really good. Especially when it comes to catching pike, if I want pike for dinner or if I want pike for bait. Those VMCs are really sticky. They come out of the package great, and they got the surgical tubing right on them. But For the bigger ones, I've got some, I don't remember what brand. I think Mustad was the brand that I got for bigger spinnerbaits. I don't fish those a lot, but for those smaller to medium-sized spinnerbaits, the VMC 4/0s are generally what I use. All right, thank you guys for watching that. If you stuck with me through the whole thing, I really appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you can take something away from the different aspects of how I approach terminal tackle. Again, I'm not an expert. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of those companies. That's just what I use. That's what I trust and have faith in. I've been burnt by crappy split rings before. I've almost been burnt by leaders getting bit through. You know, it's one of those deals where you can never be too careful, and you need to learn to control all the variables that are possible when you're only looking at 1, 2, 3 shots a day on average. You know, on a really good day, you're talking like, you know, maybe 10 plus shots, but still, that's not a lot of opportunities to catch fish. So being able to control those variables, no matter how boring they are or how boring they seem, is incredibly important. So hopefully you guys were able to take something away from this video. I'm going to keep grinding it out. You know, I was out on the water last week and I got plans to hit it again this weekend. The spring has just been awful. The weather has been terrible, to say the least. I coach junior high track. We've literally had 2 outdoor practices. We've been practicing for 2 weeks now. It's just been absolutely miserable here in Iowa. It's basically like third winter or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. But anyway, I appreciate you guys sticking with me through all that. If you care to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Channel's growing. I appreciate all the people who watch regularly and who engage with my videos. So thank you guys so much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. Anyway, soon there will be muskies hitting the bag, and they will be on camera, hopefully barring some catastrophic camera disaster. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.